All right, God day, everyone. This is Desmond. We're going to continue in the book of Galatians. And as soon as we finish the book of Galatians, we'll move on to the book of Romans. And I'm excited to get through that book also. But Galatians is a very powerful book again. If and I said it before and I say it again, one scholar put it and says this about Galatians. You can see the heart of Paul in Galatians, more the heart of Paul in Galatians. In Romans, you can see more the mind of Paul, his theological perspective, and how he was writing on justification by faith, sanctification, so on and so forth. But Galatians, the reason why he said you can see more the heart of Paul, because this was a group of people that Paul was more intimate with, meaning that he's the one who started this church, the Galatian church. And actually it was a surrounding or a circulating letter to different house churches in that southern Galatia area. In the book of Romans, when Paul wrote Romans, Paul had not visited the Romans, and he did not establish that church. And so there was more intimacy. He knew these people in Galatians, and he started this. This was his baby, so to speak. He was their father in the gospel, not necessarily with Romans. And so, but anyway, so we left off at verse 16 last time. And let me just read that, Galatians 4:16, and we'll continue. Galatians 4:16, Paul says, "So have I become your enemy by telling you the truth." And that's what happens sometimes when you speak the truth to people, when they are more committed to the life that they're living, and if they're more committed to whatever they're doing, and whatever the commitment is, if it's not the truth, and they've been convinced somehow what they're doing is true, they are going to have some issues with you. They may even become your enemy. And so I think we must be ready for that and be ready to take a stand for the gospel. Even though Paul had this Galatian church, like I said, these people were in his heart. They were dear to him, but Paul was not willing to bend the gospel for them. He was willing to even jeopardize their friendship, so to speak. He was even to jeopardize and say, I'm not going to bend on the gospel, because the gospel is true. It is the truth. And by me telling you this, I may even become your enemy by telling you this. And so how many of us are in that place to where I say, I'm not bending on the gospel? Take some maturity there. And so Paul was giving these people the truth. Even Jesus, when Jesus came in John chapter 8, the Pharisees wanted to kill Jesus because he was giving them the truth. They were religious. They weren't willing to come out. And so Paul says, so am I become your enemy because I'm telling you the truth of the gospel? Verse 17, I'm reading from the New American Standard Bible today. That's the New American Standard. They eagerly, and I may stay with the New American Standard, is believed by scholars that it's one of the better translations, literal translations. Verse 17 says, they eagerly seek you, not commendable, but they wish to shut you out so that you will seek them. Paul said their motive for seeking you out has nothing to do with God. It is for their own selfish benefit. It is for their own selfish purpose. These Judaizers were seeking you out and say, hey, this is my disciple. I raised this individual. I gave them wisdom. And then when something good happened in their life, the Judaizers was looking for them to brag on them. That's what the Judaizers was looking for, not God. They wanted to take the credit. And this is what Paul is saying when he's saying they eagerly seek you. Yeah, but it's not commendable. What they're doing is not commendable unto God. Paul is saying also, I seek you, and it's commendable. The seeking I'm doing, it is for you to be turned to Christ and not me. So you can brag about Christ and not me. This is how you know when somebody is doing something for you and they're seeking after you. How do you know they truly have good intentions? And I'm talking about a Christian now. How do you know they truly have good intentions? This is how you know. One of the ways you know is because they want God to be glorified. And let's say they gave you something. I'm going to bless you with $200. And the person who want to be commendable in God's sight, that person is saying, man, I want you to recognize that Jesus loves you. They will say that when I gave you that $200, I don't want you to look at me and come pat me on the back. Oh man, if it wasn't for you and if you wouldn't have gave me that $200, I wouldn't be where I'm at today. No, that is an individual that's seeking you for their own purpose, so you can make them feel good. But the person who has a sincere, genuine heart for God, they say, I give you this $200 so God can be glorified. I want you to see Christ and not me. But these Judaizers, they were seeking these Galatians Christians for their own motives. They wanted to make them their own disciples and not disciples of Christ. And then Paul says in verse 18, he says, but it is good always to be eagerly sought in a commendable manner, and not when I am present with you. And so Paul comes back and say it's okay to be commendable in the right way. Even when I'm gone, don't just let it be when I'm with you and people are saying, are you doing this just in front of me, just for man's approval? When I'm not with you, and Paul was not with them at this point. He was writing his letter to them. He was far from them, and now he's saying, stand. What he's actually saying to them, stand for Christ. And it's one thing when let's say your teaching, your leader is with you, and it's easier to say, man, my pastor's around, so, oh man, let me show this love. Let me do an act of kindness because my pastor's around. It's easier to do that. There's nothing wrong with that. But when my pastor or whoever the leader is, when they're not around, am I still willing to stand for Christ? Am I still willing to be commendable in the eyes of God and not man? And I believe this is the point Paul is trying to get across here. It's saying, I'm not with you now. Will you stand strong for Christ? Will you be commendable in the eyes of God? Will you please walk in an area that's pleasing unto God? Then he says, my children, with whom I again, in verse 19, and labor until Christ is formed in you. But I could wish, verse 20, to be present with you and now to change my tone, for I am perplexed about you. The reason why Paul was so perplexed, because Paul said, when I preached the gospel to you of Jesus Christ, you received him with such love and the power of God is operating. And he's perplexed because he's saying it has to be something of a demonic spirit to come and be with you, to turn you from the reality of Christ that you received for real. And so Paul said, just think about a woman that's in labor pains until that baby is formed. So Paul was saying the immature state that they were in, he was afraid because in that state, there was an aspect of a destruction that could take place. So he's saying, I want Christ to be formed in you and to be get to a place what he's actually saying, I believe, a maturity in Christ. I want to see a maturity in Christ that when people come and they try to give you a word that's contrary to the word, you're able to stand. But he was still perplexed because of the message he preached to them. And the perplexing thing is not just so much the message he preached to them, but they truly received the message. And so Satan was fighting these people. And I give you that also. That's what happens. We think, oh man, I got the message. It's good, it's good, it's good. It's just not that easy. Satan's just not going to let you go that easy. He believes that he still has this thing and say, you're still mine. I'm coming after you. I don't care how much God has touched you. I don't care how much God has delivered you. I don't care how much God has healed you. You're still mine. And I'm going to prove it by the different temptations. And so that's what he was doing, I believe, with these Galatians. He was saying, no, you're still mine. See, the Galatians, let me go here. I want to do something because I think this is important. In Ephesians chapter 2, the Galatians at one point was in this state here. Ephesians 2:1, he says, and you were dead in your trespasses and sins. These Galatians were. And I know this is Ephesians, but I'm just bringing the point out when they were unsaved, these Galatians. He says, in which you formerly walked according to the course of this world. And so that's how they walked. In their trespasses, in their sins. And they walked in that place because they were in the world and they were of the world. And so they operated by the system of the world. We're not to do that as children of God, as saints. He says, according to the prince of the power of the air. We're talking about Satan, the prince of the power of the air. Of the spirit that is now working in the sons of disobedience. And so that spirit, that anti-God spirit, it operates in people that are not saved. The prince of the power of the air has influence upon them and in them because they are of him. And so, and he says that is now working in the sons of disobedience. Who are the sons of disobedience? The sons of disobedience is the unsaved. And so these Galatians, God touched them, they got saved. And Satan said, I'm going to still show you that you're still the son or daughter of disobedience. And so our battle, some of the issue is also, we think our battle is against flesh and blood. But the Bible tells us our battle is not against flesh and blood, but powers and rulers in high places. Let's see, I think that's, I'm going to read that too. Let's see. We're going to find 2 Corinthians 10. Let's look. Verse 3. He says, for though we walk in the flesh, just talking about the life where we're still in this flesh, physical body, we do not war according to the flesh. For the weapons of our warfare are not of the flesh or carnal, but divinely powerful. What do you mean divinely powerful? Why are they divinely powerful? Because it is the Spirit of God that's operating in me, and now I operate with some divine weapons. A divine weapon is faith. Going another divine weapon, peace. These are divine weapons. Joy. These are divine weapons. For the destruction of fortresses. I like this. So many are trying to fight the wrong fight or fight with the wrong things and fight with Galatians 5:19 through 21, but we're to fight with Galatians 5:22, 23 and walk in those. But so these Galatians again, and I can't wait to get to 5:22, 23, but God had touched them and he saved them. And Paul said, I'm surprised. Could they go back? If they were truly saved, they could not go back in the sense of lose their salvation. They can live defeated, a destructive, defeated life. Okay, let's go to verse 21. He says, tell me, you who want to be under law, do you not listen to the law? Look at Paul. Paul's now he's about to show them what the law does. The purpose of the law, we went through this also. It was not to give man victory over sin. Ultimately, it was to show man the true intent of his heart. We can see the character of God in the law. And no man can live up to that. But he said, listen to it. Verse 22. For it is written that Abraham has had two sons, one by the bondwoman, talking about Hagar, and one by the free woman. But the son by the bondwoman was born according to the flesh. She is talking about the natural, because he wasn't the promised seed. God promised Abraham through Sarah. And the son by the free woman through the promise. And let me stop there for a second. Who is this free woman? We're dealing with, notice this now, we're dealing with Sarah, and God promised Sarah and Abraham that he was going to give them a seed, and out of that seed would come the seed, would come Christ. And we can see this, a picture of this, when Abraham was going to sacrifice Isaac. He was going to sacrifice Isaac based on the promise that God gave to Abraham. God gave to Abraham that he would send a redeemer, and the redeemer would save his people from their sin. And this redeemer would be the one to be raised up from the dead. And this is going to be the one. How do I know this? Is because when Abraham was going to sacrifice his son, Isaac, he was going to sacrifice his son, Isaac, because God gave him the revelation. That's why Abraham said in Genesis, God shall provide. What do you mean provide? Provide the sacrifice. Abraham believed that God would raise, even when Abraham would go kill Isaac, God knew this, God would raise him from the dead. Abraham wasn't just doing this because I'm just going to kill my son. Abraham had that revelation that the Redeemer was coming, and the Redeemer would be raised from the dead, and his son Isaac was a picture of that. So this is where we can see the faith and the belief of Abraham standing on Christ. How do I know this? John 8:56, it says this, Abraham believed. Jesus said, Abraham saw my day, and he rejoiced of the day. He's seen it through a picture of his son Isaac. But now this promise came through the free woman. Sarah was a free woman. Sarah was who this was going to come through. It wasn't of the bondwoman, Hagar. No, that was a work of the flesh. And so he's saying this: when you try to go up under law, that's a work of the flesh. No, the law is not flesh. He's using it as an allegory, but the law is not flesh. The law is good, Paul says in Romans chapter 7. But our flesh is weak, and we cannot keep the law in that way. And let's go. I'm gonna keep going. We're gonna get through some verses today. Verse 24. He says, this is allegorically speaking. For these women are two covenants, one proceeding from Mount Sinai, bearing children who are to be slaves. She is Hagar. And so, do you hear Mount Sinai? The terror that's there? Do you hear the law? Paul put it this way in 2 Corinthians 3 and said, the letter kill it. These two covenants. The old covenant and the new covenant. The old covenant, they were under law. The new covenant, they're under grace. The Spirit gives life. And this is what he's using this as an allegory. He's trying to bring the point across. You had one, the law would destroy you, and then you had one to give you life, and that was through Sarah. And he's letting them know, if you're trying to go back under the law of Moses, you're under the covenant of Mount Sinai, which is going to destroy you. Don't go back under anything. Let me just break it down this way. We are to trust nothing but Jesus Christ and him crucified. This is what he's dealing with. Justification by faith. But watch him here. Verse 25. Now this Hagar is Mount Sinai in Arabia and corresponds to the present Jerusalem. For she is in slavery with her children. But the Jerusalem above is free. She is our mother. For it is written, rejoice, barren woman who does not bear. Break forth and shout, you who are not in labor. For more numerous are the children of the desolate than of the one who has a husband. What do you mean, the children of the desolate? Notice this. When God gave Abraham and Sarah and promised them a seed, you know that she was barren and she couldn't have children. And this one lady, Sarah, where the promised seed came from, now her children is as numerous as the stars of the sky, the sand of the sea. And the seed actually is Christ. And from Christ, there are millions and billions of people. All come from the line, the lineage of Abraham and Sarah. Let's just keep going. And you, brethren, like Isaac, are children of promise. Us. Gentiles, Jews. But as at that time, he who was born according to the flesh persecuted him who was born according to the Spirit. So it is now also. But what does the scripture say? Cast out the bondwoman and her son. For the son of the bondwoman shall not be an heir with the son of the free woman. So then, brethren, we are not children of the bondwoman, but of the free woman. Oh, there's so much in that. So let me put it this way. We are children of faith. Abraham, justification by faith. And so this is what he was saying, the bondwoman. It came a time where God told Abraham, get rid of the bondwoman and her son. He told him to get rid of, let me do this so you can understand, because I think I'm going to go there. Let's see. It's going to be, let me find it. Genesis, let's see. I think we'll go like Genesis 21, probably. We'll go there. But Ishmael, who God, let me try to explain it. God told Abraham he was going to give him a promised seed. And it was going to be through Sarah. This is what all this is saying. It was going to be through Sarah. So Abraham had gotten to the place that Abraham, let's see, I should have put this, that Abraham had gotten past a certain age and past the age of having children. Sarah, I think, was 90. Abraham was 100 or 99. I think 99 or 100. I think. But Sarah was past the age of childbearing. So she couldn't have children. Not only was she past the age of childbearing, but her womb was barren. Even earlier, she couldn't ever have kids. So God promised that He would that He would give them the promise through her. Because when she had, watch this though, when she had the baby, it was past childbearing and barren years, and also she was barren. So but when God promised this to them, again, she could not have kids. So they got to an age where they tried to have it themselves. They worked up a carnal work. So Sarah told Abraham, get my handmaiden, marry her, and have a kid through her, and the kid that you have, that's going to be the promised one that God promised us. And this is what they did back then. They would get their handmaiden if the wife could not bear kids, they would get the handmaiden and they would give them as a wife to the husband so they can bear kids through that individual. And so it was real big then for a woman to have kids and to pass down in the lineage and so on and so forth. But so they went and she gave him Hagar. So Hagar had Ishmael. He was the oldest son. And then, and so eventually God had blessed Sarah where she was able to have a kid. And so God told Abraham, Ishmael is not the promised one. Isaac is. And so they grew. When the kids grew, when it's believed Abraham or Ishmael was about 17, Isaac was about 14. And Ishmael was, it said, teasing Isaac. One individual scholar said he wasn't just laughing at him like that. He was trying to destroy him. You're jealous of him, trying to kill him. And so Sarah told Abraham to get rid of Ishmael and her son. And so when he told him to get rid of Ishmael and her son, this was grievous to Isaac. This was grievous to Abraham when Sarah did that. And God appeared and told Abraham, listen to your wife. So Abraham got rid of Ishmael because he was the work of the flesh. When we say work of the flesh, he was not the promised seed. And that hurt Abraham because, when we work for something and we earned it, we don't want to get rid of it. So let me try to hurry up and get to the point. And so they got rid of him because the flesh was about to try to destroy the promise. And God allowed Abraham to keep the flesh for a certain amount of time. But it came a point where God said, now it's time to get rid of the flesh. It's enough. It's about to destroy the promise. And that's what happened in our life at times. We have the fleshly work and whatever that fleshly thing is. Let's just say you've been in a fleshly relationship and God has allowed you got saved and you're still in that relationship and you're dating someone and maybe she claims salvation and all of a sudden after 2 or 3 years, you just growing in God. And as you're growing in God, that individual is not. And so they're getting mad, they're getting hot. And so they're doing things and to destroy you because they're hot and they don't like the relationship now that you have with God. It comes a time you say, no, I'm getting rid of you. I can't have you. And so because it's the work of the flesh, it's about to try to destroy my promise, the spirit. And so this is what God was telling them, get rid of him. And Abraham did. He listened to God. He listened to his wife, but he listened to God. And this is what he's saying. Get rid of him. And Abraham did. And so what am I saying? I'm saying this is what he was telling these Galatians. He said, you get rid of that flesh. Get rid of the law in the sense of thinking that the law is that you need to be justified by Christ and also you need the law. Get rid of it completely. We don't get rid of the law in sanctification and doing for God, work for God. But if you think it's because of what you're doing is why you're saved, you need to get rid of that mindset. It will destroy you. It's a fleshly mindset. This is the point he was trying to get across. So we're children of the free woman. That's where the promise came. That's where the justification by faith is through that. And so I'm going to stop there. I went through those verses pretty quick, and then we'll start chapter 5 in the next lesson. Until next time, may the peace of God truly rule and abide in your heart. Peace.